Humanity's greatest enemy isn't evil, it's stupidity. It spreads silently, without resistance. Have you ever wondered why stupid people are dangerous? Dietrich Bonhoeffer uncovered a hidden pattern, and it's more terrifying than you think. Ignorance is programmed and it shapes society. And that's how collective mind manipulation becomes real. But is there a way out? Why can't humanity get a grip on the truth? If you want answers, keep watching. Society is full of obvious threats. Political corruption, media manipulation, economic control. But what if the real danger isn't any of those? What if there's an invisible, subtle, and incredibly destructive force that blinds people to reality, allowing all of this to happen without resistance? Dietrich Bonhoeffer, a German theologian who dared to challenge the Nazi regime, noticed something unsettling. Humanity's biggest problem isn't evil, it's stupidity. Evil requires planning, intent, and strategy. It can be fought, exposed, and confronted. But stupidity, it spreads like a silent epidemic, eroding critical thinking and creating a mass of individuals incapable of questioning, discerning, or even realizing what's actually happening. The scariest part? Stupid people don't know they're stupid. They repeat ideas without thinking, defend beliefs they don't understand, and react emotionally to anything that challenges their worldview. When manipulated, they become unwitting foot soldiers of a system they can't even comprehend. And the worst part? They truly believe they're right, even as they march straight toward their own downfall. But if stupidity is so dangerous, how does it form? Why does it spread so easily? And more importantly, is there a way to break free from this cycle of ignorance? The answer isn't where most people look. It's not just about information or academic knowledge. The real key to escaping this trap lies in understanding something much deeper. The hidden laws that govern consciousness, the invisible patterns that shape human perception, and the way our minds are programmed to accept or reject the truth. What you're about to discover might completely change the way you see the world, and maybe even yourself. Everything in the universe starts in the mind. The way we perceive reality shapes the way we interact with it. But here's the problem. Not everyone sees the world as it truly is. Human thought can be distorted, manipulated, and programmed without people even realizing it. That's why stupidity isn't just an intellectual limitation. It's a phenomenon that shapes entire societies. Bonhoeffer understood that ignorance isn't random. There's a pattern behind it, a mechanism that keeps it alive and turns it into a powerful tool of control. And this mechanism follows precise laws that most people have never even heard of. All is mind, the universe is mental. At first, this might sound abstract, but it explains why ideas, beliefs, and narratives hold so much power over humanity. The first Hermetic principle reveals that the reality we experience is, above all, a projection of consciousness. This means that if the collective mind is dominated by ignorance, then the entire structure of society will be shaped by that same limitation. Bonhoeffer recognized that the real danger isn't just the existence of evil, it's the way the masses accept it without question. Groupthink psychology shows that once a belief takes root in the collective unconscious, it gets treated as absolute truth, even without any real evidence. Governments, corporations, and institutions understand this principle and use it to manipulate society's perceptions, creating artificial realities that serve their interests. The manipulation of the collective mind doesn't happen by force. It's built through repetition, emotion, and passive acceptance. When an idea is repeated endlessly through media, education, or culture, it becomes an invisible filter that blocks any form of questioning. This explains why so many people passionately defend what harms them and aggressively reject any perspective that challenges their mental conditioning. Misinformation and critical thinking move in opposite directions. One blinds us to reality, while the other sets us free to see it. But here's the dilemma. If the human mind has the power to shape reality, why do so many people choose to stay ignorant? The answer is comfort. The unknown is terrifying. Questioning our own perception of the world takes courage because it means admitting that much of what we believe might be an illusion. The fear of being wrong is one of the main forces that sustain collective ignorance. That's why cognitive dissonance, the clash between new information and pre-existing beliefs, triggers such intense defensive reactions. Ignorance doesn't just shape societies. It defines the limits of individual reality. When someone blindly accepts what's imposed on them, they don't realize they're inside a prison. But once they understand that the mind governs everything, they gain the ability to break free from this cycle and rebuild their perception of the world. However, simply knowing this isn't enough. It has to be applied, because if reality is a reflection of consciousness, then to change it, we have to start with the only thing we truly control, our own mind. As above, so below. As within, so without. This isn't just some cryptic phrase. It's the key to understanding why collective ignorance keeps thriving. The external world we experience isn't random. It's a direct reflection of society's consciousness. Everything that manifests in physical reality first exists in the human mind. Whether it's progress or decay, freedom or oppression, wisdom or stupidity. Bonhoeffer realized that ignorance doesn't spread just because people lack information, but because they've been conditioned to accept certain truths without ever questioning them. The real danger of ignorance isn't just that it blinds individuals. It actually becomes the structural foundation of entire societies. The more an idea is absorbed by the collective mind, the stronger it becomes in external reality. This is the true manipulation of the collective mind, convincing the majority to accept an illusion, until that illusion becomes unquestionable. The social psychology of stupidity explains how control systems use misinformation to shape mass behavior. A lie repeated 1,000 times doesn't just become truth. It also defines the limits of what people believe is possible. Collective stupidity is a paradox. The more people adopt a belief without questioning it, the stronger it becomes, reinforcing itself in a never-ending loop. This also explains why individuals can be intelligent on their own, yet when placed within a group that lacks critical thinking, they become easily manipulated. Groupthink eliminates doubt, replacing the search for truth with blind conformity. The manipulation of the collective mind happens so subtly that those trapped inside the system don't even realize they've been conditioned. But here's something most people overlook. If the external world reflects the internal one, then changing external reality requires first and foremost an internal transformation. Those who wake up to this principle understand that the key to escaping manipulation isn't just fighting the system, it's rebuilding their own consciousness. Because once the mind awakens, the reality around it can never remain the same. Nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. This is a fundamental truth that few fully grasp. Everything in the universe is in constant motion, including thoughts, emotions, and states of consciousness. But here's the secret. The frequency you vibrate at determines the reality you perceive. And this is exactly why collective ignorance isn't just an intellectual failure. It's a manipulated vibrational state designed to keep society trapped in apathy and fear. Bonhoeffer realized that the greatest danger of stupidity isn't just its inability to reason. It's its tendency to become a tool for greater forces. Ignorance doesn't question, doesn't challenge, doesn't break patterns. It simply accepts what it's given and reacts automatically, almost mechanically. But why do so many people stay in this state? The answer lies in vibration. Misinformation and critical thinking operate on opposite frequencies. Fear, anger, and alienation vibrate at low levels, making people more susceptible to manipulation. Governments, institutions, and corporations understand this all too well. When the collective mind is constantly bombarded with chaos, tragedy, and endless distractions, low vibration is maintained. And with it, the masses' passivity. People living in this state don't just accept the imposed reality, they defend it. They become incapable of seeing alternatives, and as a result, they don't just reject the truth, they become immune to it. Bonhoeffer understood that stupidity isn't just a lack of intelligence, it's a form of mental blindness that blocks any chance of growth. The social psychology of stupidity explains that individuals stuck in dense emotional states lose their ability to think critically. They don't just absorb misinformation, they defend it with conviction. This is the real danger of ignorance. It doesn't need to be forced upon people, because the manipulated will make sure it perpetuates itself. But here's the key. Just as ignorance lowers a person's frequency, awakening consciousness raises it. The moment someone breaks free from this cycle and shifts their vibration, they start seeing patterns that were once hidden, and that's when they begin to take back control over their own reality. Everything moves in tides, everything rises and falls, everything unfolds in rhythm. This unseen truth governs time, nature, and most importantly, human consciousness. Knowledge and ignorance swing like a pendulum. There are moments when truth resurfaces with force, awakening minds and shattering illusions. But there are also periods when collective mind control strengthens, and critical thinking gives way to blind acceptance. What most people don't realize is that this back and forth doesn't happen randomly. It follows a predictable pattern. Bonhoeffer understood that collective stupidity isn't just an isolated phenomenon. It's part of a cyclical process. The danger of ignorance becomes most evident when society reaches a peak of comfort and complacency. When questioning becomes uncomfortable, when truth becomes inconvenient, the masses choose illusion over reality. The real danger of ignorance lies in how it creeps in unnoticed, feeding on the illusion that the world is already figured out, that there's nothing left to question. And so, when the pursuit of knowledge is replaced by blind acceptance, the cycle of darkness begins again. The social psychology of stupidity explains that when a system of control reaches its peak, intellectual resistance fades. Mass manipulation becomes so sophisticated that the very people being controlled start defending the mechanisms that keep them trapped. Misinformation, when repeated without challenge, turns into dogma. And just like that, empires don't fall because of external enemies, but because of the internal poisoning of their people's consciousness. This has happened before. It's happening now, but the cycle can be broken. Just as night always comes before dawn, every era of ignorance inevitably sparks the drive for a new awakening. Those who recognize this pattern before the majority become the catalysts for change. The rhythm of manipulation is predictable, but the revolution of consciousness begins in the unexpected, in the one who dares to question when everyone else chooses silence. Ignorance isn't just a lack of knowledge, it's a mental state, an invisible prison that keeps the human mind trapped in predictable cycles of submission. Its walls aren't physical, they're built with implanted beliefs, reinforced illusions, and distorted truths. The most dangerous part? Those living inside this prison don't even realize it. They believe they're free when in reality their perceptions have been shaped by forces they've never even seen. Bonhoeffer warned that the real danger of stupidity isn't a lack of intelligence. It's the refusal to see beyond the obvious. The social psychology of stupidity explains that people stuck in this state don't just accept manipulation, they defend it. They react emotionally, protect the very systems that exploit them, and attack anyone who tries to wake them up. This is the paradox of ignorance. The less a person understands, the more convinced they are that they're right, and the more they cling to their illusions, the stronger mass manipulation becomes. The manipulation of the collective mind works because few people understand the power of the Hermetic Laws. If reality is shaped by consciousness, then the only way to break free from illusion is to take control of your own perception. The first step is mastering mentalism, understanding that your thoughts create your experience. Next is applying correspondence, realizing that the external world reflects the internal one. Then comes vibration, raising your frequency above fear and passivity. And finally, breaking the rhythm, interrupting the cycles of manipulation that keep repeating throughout history. Ignorance is a cycle. Awakening is too. The difference? One imprisons you, the other sets you free. And the choice between the two has always been, and will always be, inside the mind of the one who chooses to see. Ignorance isn't random. It's a social phenomenon, a mechanism of control, and above all, a cycle that repeats throughout history. Bonhoeffer understood that stupidity doesn't just strengthen evil, it protects it, not because it's impossible to fight, but because those trapped in it don't realize their own condition. They follow narratives, defend illusions, and instinctively push back against anything that threatens the reality they believe to be unquestionable. But now you know that reality isn't fixed. What we perceive as the world is merely a reflection of collective consciousness, and consciousness can be transformed. The Hermetic principles teach that everything begins in the mind. Whoever controls their thoughts controls their perception. Whoever masters their perception rewrites their reality. Whoever raises their vibration transcends the illusion. Ignorance thrives because the masses choose inertia. Awakening happens when the individual chooses to see. The first step to breaking free from this cycle is simple, yet profound. Question everything. Ask yourself why you believe what you believe. Ask yourself who benefits from your worldview. Ask yourself what truths were imposed on you without you even realizing it. Because the moment you start questioning, the walls of the prison become visible, and once they're visible, they can be destroyed. Reality is only unchangeable for those who don't dare to shape it. But for those who awaken, a new path unfolds, one where critical thinking, consciousness, and knowledge become the true keys to freedom.